All right, so thank you all for being here in person, or thank you for being here on Zoom or Power DMS. For everybody who knows who I am, I'd like to introduce tonight to you Scarlett Williams. I'll let her speak about herself in a little bit. Just give you a little bit of background. The way that I ran into Scarlett was, it was back in, I think it was 2019. For me, I had been dealing with what I eventually learned was low-grade PTSD for about probably somewhere around, I would say 7 or 8 years before I met Scarlett. And I had never been to therapy in my life, wasn't really a big fan of it. Just the way I was brought up, you just didn't really do that. But over time, I felt more and more like I needed to figure out something else. I definitely had a lot of support with that. My wife helped me look into that. And eventually, as my priest, who I just told him, I said, I need someone to tell me to go to therapy. So he looked at me and said, Micah, go to therapy. So I did a little bit of research and I decided to meet Scarlett Williams, and she recommended a technique for me. And what my hope is that tonight you're going to learn about something that it could directly impact you. It could be useful for you, the person who's watching this recording or in this room, but also this really could be profoundly helpful for other people in your life, whether it's colleagues, other first responders out there, or family members. I found this technique to be extremely helpful for an array of people. Scarlett has, left me with a better quality of life than what I had 2 years ago. And it's made a considerable difference in my personal life. And frankly, I think has helped me be a better police officer as well. So anyway, without further ado, I will turn the floor over to you, Scarlett. Tell us about yourself and go for it.
All right. Thank you all for letting me come talk with you. My name is Scarlett Williams. I've got a private practice over on South Main Street here in Blacksburg, so I'm not very far from you. I run past your office every morning. What else do you want to know? I've got an 8-year-old. I grew up in Pulaski, moved away and then moved back here. I was going to bring my dad, but he shied away. He likes to dress up in costumes. So the last presentation I did, he dressed up in a turkey outfit. And he's got a new alien one for Halloween, but he's being abducted by an alien. But he was a little embarrassed to come because he really likes you all a lot. So it was a little too embarrassing for him to come here, but he did do the last presentation in his turkey outfit to represent Blacksburg. So. Oh, you can't hear?
Yeah, do you mind just stepping a little bit closer to them? The mic's not quite picking you up.
Sure. Better? You want me to turn it up? Did you hear about my dad in his turkey outfit?
Maybe even just, are you willing to hold it?
Hold it?
Yeah.
Is this better?
Bring it closer to your mouth.
Is that better?
There we go.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So my dad really loves you all a lot. And he did represent Blacksburg in his turkey outfit when I did a presentation a couple weeks ago for a worldwide audience for EMDR. Okay, so this presentation is EMDR for first responders. I love, love, love EMDR. It is so very helpful, and it works really, really well. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk about optimal brain functioning, adverse childhood effects on the brain, alleviating symptoms and target memories with EMDR. And then I'm going to talk about prevention strategies that you can use today, because there is no need to wait. You can do this right now. Okay. And let me tell you about why I do what I do. So my goal for myself, my family, and all of us as people is full enjoyment of living through the lifespan. I want to have as much fun as I can every single day of the year. And I want that for everybody. We can get that. In order to get that, we want our brains to be functioning optimally. So we can get that through good nutrition, exercise, and sleep. When our brains are functioning optimally, that allows us to do what we do best as humans, which is to adapt, problem solve, and innovate. So it helps us to solve problems in our daily lives. And you guys are solving problems all the time on the job. So it'll help you to do that better. When we experience, hold on, let me go back. Okay. So optimal brain functioning, when our brain is functioning optimally, we're able to solve problems and do what we do best as humans. Let me explain how the brain works. I talk with my hands, so I can't hold this thing and talk. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so let me explain how our brains work. So I'm going to explain two models. So there's one model, this is a Dan Siegel model, and he wrote this great book, The Whole Brain Child. So there are some really fun books if you want to read in your spare time, and they're all in the Blacksburg Library. So one model of how our brain works is the Dan Siegel model. So that's three parts. So we've got our brain stem, and you can think about it as the reptilian part of the brain. So that's our survival part of our brain. The mammalian part of our brain with our limbic system, and our emotional part of our brain, and our prefrontal cortex, our thinking part of our brain. So what we want our brains to do is to have those three parts of our brain working in harmony. And that allows us to problem solve and do our best in the present when we're trying to do everything that we do. Okay. Next thing. So here's our brain. All information comes in the brain during the day and all five senses. And when we're asleep at night, our brain's pruning and letting most of that information go. Because you don't need to remember what the temperature's like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Although these things are pretty impressive, they can't hold all that information. So our brain lets go of that information at night. Whatever needs to be remembered or learned gets stored in the long-term memory. Okay. That's how our brains work all day long. Okay. When we experience something that's between bothersome and life-threatening, our brain encodes that information in all five senses, and that's for survival. So 10,000 years ago, if you were at a watering hole and there was a saber-toothed tiger, okay, and you survived, your brain would hold all that information for survival so that you would be able to survive. Okay, so the next time you were at a watering hole and any of that information repeated itself, like the way the water rippled was similar, or the angle of the sun in the sky, or anything, okay, was similar to that previous time, for survival, your brain would send you these signals of fear, or I got to get away, or you get anxious and you would leave. Okay, and that's how we encode information. So what that does is when we're holding information between bothersome to life-threatening from past experiences, in the present, we get triggered. And that's where we get triggered in the present. And that's where we have anxiety, depression, PTSD, a whole host of issues occur out of that, the way that our brains work. Okay, so adverse childhood events. Okay, so since the 90s, the CDC and Kaiser Permanente ask 17,000 adults about their experiences from childhood. And what they did was just start researching childhood experiences of emotional, physical, sexual abuse, neglect, and household challenges, right? And what they found is that of those 17,000 adults, 2/3 of those 17,000 people had one adverse childhood events, and 1 in 5 noted 5 or noted 3 or more. Okay, and what this study found, and it's been going on since the 1990s, is that there's a link between adverse childhood events, exposure, and a higher likelihood of negative health and behavior outcomes later in life. So it increases your risk for heart disease, diabetes, and premature death. Okay, this is not fun stuff we're talking about right now, but it is, we got to go over. So average childhood experiences, it increases, it disrupts our brain's ability to develop It causes social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. Later in life, people are more likely to adapt health risk behaviors. It increases our likelihood of disease, disability, and social problems, and we have earlier death. Okay, so in a nutshell, when we experience stressful things, our systems have difficulty with that, and it causes us negative effects throughout our lives. So when you guys are out dealing with people, these people have adverse childhood events, or they probably wouldn't be needing your services on campus. All right, so this study has been going on. So researchers have been looking at adverse events and how they impact our brains and how they impact our bodies since the 1990s. So this was just a study out this past year. And this is just California alone, that the ACEs, so adverse events, cost California $113 billion a year. So if we think about this, right? So like if we're storing information between bothersome and like threatening, it's causing lots of negative effects on our bodies and brains throughout time. And now people are starting to put like a cost on that. So when things get to the point where they're talked about in dollars, then change starts to happen. And there'll be a lot more proactive things put in place when you start to think about the negative costs per year to a society. So anyway, so there's a little more information. Okay. All right, so first responder cumulative stress, all right? So when you work in a high stress job, over time, that's gonna cause stress on your brain and your body, right? So there's a lot of different statistics and they sort of vary. Micah sent me some statistics and then I was looking through lots of different things. So they vary, you know, between a certain percent and a certain percent, but across the board, there's higher rates of depression, stress, post-traumatic stress. Oh, hold on, I forgot what's on the next slide. Substance abuse and suicide ideation. So depression. So police officers after 9/11 had a 24.7% prevalence of depression and a 47.7% prevalence of both depression and anxiety. So what all these studies are doing, they're polling different police departments over time with different events. So after 9/11, the stress is going to be higher for depression than before 9/11, but still there's going to be an elevated likelihood of depression. Okay. And then here's another one. So after Katrina, there was a PTSD reported between 7 and 19% for police officers. And then there are a couple other studies, and it looks like it's probably about 15% for most police officers have PTSD. Micah, right?
Yeah, just wait for microphone to turn on. Yeah, it was somewhere around, depending on what study you're looking at, it's somewhere between like 15 and 20% of police officers in their career are at some point going to develop PTSD, or at least a lot of PTSD symptoms.
And then substance abuse. Oh, I can't see. Oh, I can't see. So substance abuse and use is elevated for police officers. And then suicide and suicide ideation, the lifetime prevalence is 25% in female police officers and 23.1% in male officers. And then police officers are, this is from Micah. Police officers are approximately 300% more likely to kill themselves than to be killed in the line of duty. So when we think about stress and how it affects our brains and bodies, you really can see from these studies that it has a cumulative effect over time. And well, you have to take these pictures with a grain of salt. So these are off of different sites for brain development. And so here's a normal brain, but we don't really know what a normal brain is. So take this with a grain of salt. But with the PTSD, our brains do change when we experience PTSD. And you can see a difference in the blue area versus green area. So in counseling and psychology, you've got this DSM-4 and it's got all these different diagnoses that you categorize people in. So anyway, at this point, I do EMDR every day long. I mean, I do it all day long, every day, and it's so very helpful for people. I just kind of figure out like everybody's got a little bit of either sub-PTSD or subclinical complex PTSD, and that's just from living life. Like life happens, things happen, and sometimes they store traumatically. That might be that you witnessed a murder or your dog died, or let me think about something else. Right, kid falls in the pool, you didn't quite ace that Latin test in your junior year of high school, like all kinds of things store traumatically for different people. So it is what it is, and this is how our brain works. Okay, so it causes all kinds of effects and maladies. Okay. How do we get to that? Oh yeah, that'd be great. Okay. So when I work with, I don't give this to everybody, but this is when I'm trying to be like research based. I have got this inventory that I give most everybody. So you guys are welcome. Mike, are you going to make this PowerPoint available to everybody?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So if you have this PowerPoint and you want to click on this inventory, so it's just got a lot of symptoms on it. So there's 20 symptoms on here, you know, bad dreams, not wanting to think about negative experiences, being being super alert or guarded or watchful, having your feelings easily hurt, feeling defeated or worthless, feeling like you have to watch for dangers, difficulty experiencing positive emotions, feeling that you're bad or something's wrong with you, being easily startled or jumpy, blaming yourself for the stressful experiences. So you're welcome to look over these in the privacy of your own home or on your phone in your car, wherever you want to. If you feel like you're, you know, if your levels are around 3s and 4s for most everything, do EMDR. It's really, really fast and it makes these symptoms go away really, really quickly, most all the time. Sometimes I have to, you know, sometimes I'm working with people for a while, but mostly it's pretty quick. So when I started doing EMDR, I didn't know about any of those inventories, and I really love that inventory because it kind of encompasses what people notice when they do EMDR, is that those symptoms really, they either dissipate or they abate, and they're just not there anymore. And it's a very fast process. I like it because it's so fast, and it works really well.
Yeah, it is really fast. It's amazing how quickly some of the things, I know you'll go more into it in a little bit, but it's incredible.
It's so fast.
Like 20, 30-minute sessions can really do stuff, but I know you're going to get to that in a second.
So I want to start selling t-shirts that say I love EMDR. So I'll start wearing one, and then you all can wear them, and we'll just wear them all over on campus, and everybody will know, like, I love EMDR because it's so awesome. All right, so this is, so back to sort of, I guess you guys didn't realize you were going to get some neuroscience there at 7 o'clock at night. Probably weren't expecting that. So anyways, but it's quick and it's great to sort of understand how our brains work. It's really, really helpful. Oh, there are 2 great books in the Blacksburg Library if you ever want to read them. And you probably would love them because you all do psychology all day long. That's your job, right? You work with people. You got to know how they work. So there's this book called The Female Brain and the Male Brain, and they're both in the Blacksburg Library, and they're great books because they explain kind of how our brain works over the lifespan. My mom loved it. She usually just likes to read murder mysteries, but she really liked that one a lot. Okay, so if 1 is calm and 10 is overwhelmed, okay, so 1 is so calm, 1 you're pretty calm and 10 you're overwhelmed. With adverse life events, when I poll most people that come in for EMDR, they're running between, I don't know, a 4 and a 7. Okay, so when we're doing EMDR, we're clearing out these past memories. It helps your brain calm down. So it's just easier to be calm. You feel calmer, you feel more able to focus. It just sort of helps your brain relax, because when your brain's trying to hold on to a lot of details from a lot of memories, it makes it, you are sort of headed towards overwhelm all the time. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Mike? Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. So it's kind of like, if it's a good day and it's routine, and there's just a small part of you that just kind of still feeling like something's going to go wrong today, that's really actually not the way it should be. And that, and again, for me, like when I was really bad for me, which I know compared, I don't like to compare trauma because that's stupid. I know there are other cases that are worse than the one I had, just from what people told me. Like for me, I'd always have this low grade suspicion something bad's going to happen. And then when something did happen, like maybe one of my kids falls down and gets a cut, or maybe somebody was supposed to run an errand for me and they didn't do it, like my wife or my roommate back in college or whatever it was. You get really angry, you get really frustrated. And when I would get really angry, even if the situation was resolved very quickly, or even if it turned out that it was a misunderstanding, I didn't quickly come back down from that. I'd be angry for hours, or at least for 20, 30 minutes, I'd be seeing red over relatively small things. And I know for some people it's not that extreme, and for other people it can be worse than that. But that was kind of like, that was me. I would have never, for years, I was never a 1. Never. Do I feel like a 1 now? Many days I am. Yeah. I've had a newborn recently and I got promoted, and there's some things that kind of mess with that a little bit. But yeah, generally these days I'm probably like a 2 or a 3, right? And when I came to you a couple of years ago, most days I was like a 5 or worse. That was baseline.
I love EMDR so much. It's so helpful. Right, and because that's what we want. Like, this is what I want for everybody, that we have calm brains, we're able to like go about our business and solve our problems, and we're having as much fun as we can have in the day. It seems like fun. That's what we all want, I think. All right, so, here's another t-shirt. This one's for Micah. Turn videos into postcards with EMDR. So that's what we're doing. We're helping the brain let go of those details, so things don't bother you so much. And most times they just don't bother you at all. You just don't even think about them anymore.
Can I expand on that?
Oh, please.
So like I think she's probably heard this from other people too. I think you probably gave me the words.
But I didn't. You came up with, this is a great one.
Oh, I said this
it.
first? Okay, I don't remember which one I came up with first. In one of the sessions, I remember saying this and agreeing with it. So for some of you, maybe I hope you're blessed and you don't have this, but for me, for a long time, there were incidents, especially on duty, but some of them were off duty, incidents on duty where I could go back through it and I was there. It was like a movie. I could literally fall into it. I might not even pay attention to my surroundings anymore, but I could literally relive that event. And I'd remember how it smelled and what it looked like. I'd remember the time of day. I could remember background noises. It was like I was there. And, not necessarily for hours, more like maybe 30 seconds to a minute. I could literally be there again. And I could remember how I felt. I could remember the adrenaline. And if I thought about it, I'd start to feel the adrenaline dump. My palms might get sweaty. I might get a lump in my throat. I might start to kind of want to almost even make a certain movement based upon that memory. And, people talk about these things. I never had the nightmares so much, though occasionally I'd have like weird nightmares where like maybe, it was an incident that happened, but this time I go to draw my gun and I can't get out of my holster, something like that. But more I'm talking about actually just remembering the event. I could put myself right back into it again. And with EMDR, and she'll show you what the technique is in a little bit. We're not going to keep just pretending like it's a thing you already know. We know you don't know what it is yet. But with EMDR, I was taking these full color graphic virtual reality movies, and they were turning into black and white postcards. I still had all the information. My memory was not erased, right? Like if I had to testify in court, I would be able to say everything that happened. The difference was it wasn't vivid anymore. You know, I could, even if I really thought really hard, I can still play through it like I'm still there, but I have to concentrate really hard to do it, and it doesn't affect me anymore. I can think about it and I don't get freaked out. I don't get upset. And, you know, that for me, not only in those moments does that help, but I'm remembering these events. I didn't get triggered anymore. The events didn't come up unless people asked me questions specific to the event. And then the last piece, again, is when I was going about daily life after about probably 5 or 6 sessions of this, I just didn't have that low grade concern all the time. And when I would get angry, I would be angry for what was making me angry. And then when that was done, then I was done being angry. And that might be the most, to me, that might be the most important thing I got out of all this, is that when I was off duty, I could calm down.
So this is a little video to explain how EMDR works.
Can you just click on
Yeah,
it?
can you click on it and make it work?
Now, I know your technique is a little bit different than what that video said, so we'll get there when you want to get there. But I know that you've never done this with me, so.
Okay, so these are the 8 stages of EMDR. Let me explain what we do. You come in, we do a life history. We're looking for trauma targets and we clear one at a time. That's what we're gonna do. Oh, also, there's a couple other therapists in the area. If you don't like me and you wanna go to somebody else, there's Erin Sullivan in Christiansburg, Krista Fink here in Blacksburg, and Sienna Reed and Roanoke. You can also go on the EMDR website and you can type in your zip code and look for people that do EMDR. You want to make sure that you have somebody who's certified. So that means they took the training and then they've certified. So they work with somebody who's a consultant to make sure that they know what they're doing. And then I'm a certified and a consultant. So I know what I'm doing. Okay, so when we set a trauma target up, this is what we do. You're going to give me the first memory, the worst memory, and you don't have to give a lot of details. So when we're doing a life history, you don't have to give a lot of details either. You can just say, I don't know, assault, age 35. I'm not giving you a lot of details. The great thing about EMDR is you can do EMDR blind to therapist, so you don't ever have to tell me anything that happened. I just need to know kind of where you are in time and place, and you can clear out a memory. So sometimes people prefer to do it that way where they're not even telling the therapist what they're doing. And that's totally fine too, because our brains are just letting go of detail, and however you want to do it, we can do it. There's so much flexibility to it. It makes it really it makes it fun to do. Okay, so you give me the first memory, the worst memory, emotions associated with the target, body sensations. Like when you think about the memory, do you notice something in your head, throat, chest, stomach, arms, legs? Negative cognition you might have about yourself. I was helpless. It was all my fault. I'm a bad person. Something, anything that would be negative that you would think about yourself associated with the memory. And then 0 to 10, how much it bothers you. 0, it doesn't bother you at all. And 10, it really bothers you a lot. Sometimes things are like a 12 or 100 million. Sometimes kids say it's like a million billion. Well, actually, no, I haven't had a kid that said it's that high. And then what you want your positive cognition to be when the memory clears out. When it clears to 0, what do you want to think positively about this? It wasn't my fault. It's over. I'm safe now. Anything along those lines. And then the memory is considered clear. When it goes to 0, it doesn't bother you at all. Your positive cognition goes to 7 for completely true. And then we do future templates. So if this were to happen again in the future, what's available for resource? People, thoughts, words, and actions. Basically, all EMDR is, it's a debrief. You guys do debriefs, right? After something happens, you do a debrief and you go over what went well, what didn't go well, and if you were going to do it again next time, how you should change things up, right?
Yeah, we do a version of that. I think we got some people in the room that can speak to that more than I can, but I haven't had to go through one here, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, the EMDR is it's the debrief after the debriefs, because our brains need to run back through things so we can figure out what happened, what we needed to learn from that, and to let go of all those details that you don't need. Because we're holding, when something's storing between bothersome and life-threatening, you're holding it in all 5 senses like it's a Hollywood movie. Okay, so you don't need to remember the color of the wall, the texture of the carpet, what else is in here? Like that air conditioned system. Like you don't need to remember all of that stuff, because when you hold on to that stuff, those are the details that are triggering you in the present and making life not as fun as it could be. So we're we're just letting go of all those details.
Yeah, definitely. Like one example was there was one memory I cleared. It was a use of force back when I worked for a different agency, and it was one of those memories. If I thought about it, one of my hands would feel weak because of something that happened during the incident. I get a lump in my throat, and I'd feel a lot of adrenaline. And every single time when I was still working there, that I drove down that same street at that time of day, when the sunlight would hit my windshield at that intersection, which only happened a couple of times a year, I would be right back in that moment again. And I didn't like that, and until I got EMDR years later, I'm sure if I had gone back to that street, the same thing would have been triggered again. I'm pretty confident now I could probably drive down that street and nothing would happen at all. But what she's talking about too with that positive cognition in a 7, we talked about the incident. I prefer to give detail. I don't mind sharing detail, but she doesn't make you do that. but like we talked about, what is true? What is a positive thing you can talk about? And there was an incident where I was thrown into something. I had no idea was going to happen. I just fell back on my training, and luckily nobody got seriously injured, and it was okay. It worked out, and even a successful prosecution. But ultimately, the only thing I could say about it that was really true, I couldn't say like, you know, I did a great job or anything like that. All I could really end up saying was I did my job. And we talked about it. And, you know, once I was able to do a few sessions of EMDR on the incident, it was a 7 out of 7. It was true. I really did just do my job. And I was able to think about that event a lot more logically than I had in the past. And so the event went from something that really upset me and could get me in a really bad mood if I thought about it, to now when I think about it, I just don't have any emotional attachment to it at all. I just think about it and go, yeah, I did my job. That's it. I'm thinking about it right now while I'm talking to you all, and just doesn't bother me. But it used to be I would get tears in my eyes and stuff. I wouldn't be able to talk about it. So it's cool.
Everybody needs to buy my t-shirts. I love EMDR. It's so helpful. Okay, so the video that we saw was from so there's a group in the Netherlands, and so they've taken EMDR to the next level and added a lot of extra things into it. So that's the way that I practice EMDR now. So in addition to working in my office, I've also started working and doing intensive sessions. So offering a couple, 2 to, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 hours a day. I run from 9 to 10, and then I can do EMDR all day long from 10 to 5. I have to pick my kid up at 5. So however many hours 10 to 5 is. And I've been using don't tell anybody, but I've been using the horticulture garden as my second office because it's so nice to be outside and process through memories. EMDR actually works better outside because you've got a lot more stimuli coming in and memories clear out quicker. So with EMDR, what we're doing is we're taking a memory out of long-term storage. We're going to put it in short-term storage, and we're going to tax your short-term working memory as much as I can to get that memory to clear out as quickly as I can. So outside, you've got the sun, you've got some wind, there's a little bullfrog over there in the horticulture garden and this cute little rabbit that show up when you're reprocessing. So outside, you've got more detail. Our offices are in comparison, they're sort of boring. So it's not a lot of stimuli coming in.
I will push back only and say that I've always done my sessions with you in the office because, I'm kind of private about it and stuff like that. But I will admit, I do think it probably would be very effective outside. I've never been able to bring myself to do any of these sessions with you except at the office, but it is intriguing, definitely.
Well, no, so there's a lot of possibility for doing DR, right? I'll get there in a minute. But anyway, so what we do is, Michael, can we demonstrate?
Sure.
Okay, so there are multiple ways to reprocess memories. So what I do is try to have, do a lot of tasks at one time, all right? So I want you to so we're gonna pretend like you've got a memory pulled up, okay? And then, where's my, did I bring that? Aha, I did, okay. All right, so I like to use this turquoise ball because it works good on Zoom because you can see it. All right, so I want you to start doing a V-step. So just step up and back.
Okay.
I don't know if we did that or not, but anyway.
We've done this, we did this for one memory.
Oh, okay. So, all right, so what we want to do is tax the short-term working memory while you're holding that memory in long-term storage, okay? So you can move back and forth, okay? And then you can track back and forth with your eyes. So that's 2 tasks at once. And then you pull the memory up. Okay. And then spell tech.
C-H.
And spell it backwards.
H-C-E-T.
And you can do math problems too. 9 plus 2.
9 plus 2 is 11.
And spell the number 6.
S-I-X.
Okay. And then I would ask you, what do you notice? Okay. And as we're going through this process, what happens is the emotion, the vividity of the emotion decreases, the vividity of the picture decreases, the intensity of the emotion decreases, and it goes from first to third person. And this happens every single time for every memory that I reprocess. And I do EMDR all day long, and I'm not doing easy. I'm not doing easy memories. I'm doing like hard. It's hard stuff all day long. Oh, I forgot him. I should have brought those.
That's okay. So typically, when we've done the therapy sessions, that would work just as fine, just as well. She typically gives me 2 buzzers, and I hold them each in my hand. And basically, they're going to light up and buzz one at a time. The whole point of it is just to get my eyes to go left and right. It's kind of like, I guess it's not like REM sleep. I don't know if we're going to talk about that later or not, but it's kind of like it with your eyes going back and forth. It helps you to kind of go deeper into your memories. I don't know why, but it does. And so getting my eyes to move back and forth quickly between these 2 stimulus, it's a lot like if you're going on a run. When you're running, you're going left, right, left, right, left, right. Your eyes are actually going left, right, left, right. And a lot of people go running to deal with trauma, right? A lot of people talk about how they go on a run because they got to think about something. They're going to walk because they got to think about something. EMDR is just targeting one part of that that's getting you to go back into your memory. Because for some reason, us human beings, when our eyes go back and forth, we're able to more readily recall these memories. And when we're able to bring them up, then Scarlett's able to help us process them again and to get rid of all this extra stuff that's associated with the memory.
Yeah, that's all we're doing. It works really great. So you can do V steps, you can run in place, you can cross, you could do push-ups, you can do burpees. You can sit down and just hold it down.
Sit in a chair and just do this. That's what I normally did, frankly.
There's all kinds of ways to reprocess. And so that's what makes it so interesting and neat, is figuring out like how to, how to set it up so you'll reprocess as quickly as possible. I did a cool one. I had a client that has lots of childhood trauma, but he's also has some rock climbing. He got scared of rock climbing. So we were doing the rock climbing phobia the other day. And so we had him, what did I do? Oh, I think I had a little step that he stood on, and we said like on belay, and he would fall back against the wall. And so that came down really quick. And I think he went rock climbing this weekend. So hopefully he had a lot of fun. So there's no, so you can reprocess traumatic memories. You can also use it for performance enhancement to do better at work. So, there's no, I use EMDR for myself. I use it for my daughter. She's, what is she? She's 9. And she, little kids start having nightmares when they're 4 or 5. So I started just tapping on her legs in the middle of the night, and I would ask her like how much it bothers her, and she'd say like this much, and then it would go down to 0, and then she'd go back to sleep. But I maybe I shouldn't have started doing that, because she still wakes me up in the middle of the night. She's like, "Mommy, you got to do a tappy tappy." So you can use it for, it's a it's way to help clear information from our brains and make it easier to enjoy our lives. I use it all the time. So this is what people report after they've done EMDR. They feel happier, they're calmer, they feel lighter. A couple people have reported that better visual acuity. And at first I thought that was really weird, but I think it's because they're not being triggered so much, or they're not in their memories all the time, so they pay attention to what's around them. So I had one college student or a tech student who said, I've walked down this campus for like the last 4 years, and I saw these 2 buildings I've never noticed before. And I was like, wow, okay. Nightmares are gone. PTSD symptoms are abated. Improved sleep, increased socialization, improved ability to focus. Some people no longer need their medications for depression, anxiety, ADD. The startle reflex is abated. Aversion to sounds are abated. Headaches and stomach aches are resolved. Alleviation of shame and guilt. And I mean, it's such a simple thing to, well, it's not simple, it's complicated, but right, it provides so many benefits for everybody. It's such a wonderful way to work, and it's just so very helpful.
It really is interesting, like the aversion to sounds. That's when I kind of noticed that I didn't clear any memories that were associated with gunshots or anything like that. I didn't clear any loud noises in any of my memories that I had that I thought were most bothering me. But now it used to be that like we didn't really bring balloons into the house because if the kids startled me with a balloon, that could set me off for a couple hours where I'd just be in a bad mood. Again, it wasn't linked. The sound itself wasn't the problem. Is that it startled me, and then I'd get into that fight or flight response, and I wouldn't be able to come back out of it again for a really long time. Now the kids bring balloons in the house, they pop them. I don't care anymore. It just doesn't do anything to me. It's just kind of interesting because I don't have any memory of loud noises bothering me, but that overall level being diminished, a lot of these things that used to get to me, they just don't get to me anymore. It's really interesting.
Here's another image. So this is before somebody who did before EMDR and after EMDR. And I really would love to have an MRI machine in my office so I could stick people in an MRI machine and then do EMDR and then do it again. But I hate MRI machines, so I can't actually ever say like, here, jump in this thing. But there is an MRI machine on Tech's campus, and hopefully somebody will let me use that eventually. They never actually will. Nobody's ever gonna call me and say like, Scarlett, our MRI machine is available for you. It's never gonna happen. But anyway, it's cut. The pictures are neat to see kind of the before and after about how the brain reprocesses information and then how it looks a little bit different. Okay, now we're on to the good stuff. So prevention strategies that you can use today. There's no need to wait, okay? Because what all EMDR is doing is we're reconsolidating a memory. So a memory that's between bothersome and life threatening gets stored in all 5 senses in our brains, okay? We can't help that. Sometimes stuff gets stuck, okay? One thing that might get not stuck for, there's 52 people in your department. Maybe 50 people it doesn't stick for, but 2 people it does. Like there's no rhyme or reason to what sticks for one person and what it doesn't stick for another one. It just, this is the way we come as humans, and sometimes it stores where it's going to trigger you in the present. That's just how we come as humans. All right, get ready. Emery's ready to karate chop. So let's do this. All right, so staying present. So when information is coming in, you can use this when you're sitting in a meeting and listening to the information over again. You can use this when you're working, when you're out working with people. These are strategies to help yourself stay present so that your brain will say that it's working optimally together. So when we're reconsolidating a memory, what we're doing is saying, okay, brain, do a couple of things all at once, right? Don't just sit here and let's see, what's something that might store traumatically for me? Hold on, this is hard. Some things do store traumatically for me. Oh, scary movie. Okay, like if I were to have to sit there and watch a scary movie, that would store traumatically for me. Okay, if I was tapping my toes and tapping my fingers, okay, and taking a sip of water, okay, and maybe chewing gum, I'd be doing 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Okay, 4 little things that the person sitting next to me in the movie theater would think is totally socially appropriate. And they would never think like Scarlett is weird because she's doing these things. Okay? I could be doing 4 things to help myself so that information coming towards me would not store traumatically. That makes it easier to, so if you're working, okay, and I do this at work too. So like if I'm taking a life history and there's a lot of stuff there and it's like, oh boy, I'm not gonna sleep good tonight. So I start tapping my toes, okay? And I got this from another EMDR therapist. So tap your toes so that the information coming in is not going to store traumatically. So it makes it easier to sleep at night. It makes it easier to not think about the situation 5 minutes after it happens, in the middle of the night, the next day, in the shower in the morning. Okay, we want to be able to do our jobs. Information has to come in and we got to process it. So you can tap your toes, tap your fingers, right? Another thing you can do is like keep a smooth stone in your pocket and rub it. Take a sip of water. That's a great strategy to help calm yourself down. Well, I'm going to do it right now because my mouth is dry.
Yeah, so while she was talking, I was tapping my toes and tapping my fingers. Y'all couldn't see it. But I've actually been using this coping technique for presentations because, believe it or not, I really do actually have stage fright, but this helps. It helps you just kind of not get sucked into your fear. I mean, that's a mild example. Another example is when I'm interviewing somebody for a crime. It hasn't happened all that often the last few years, but occasionally I've interviewed somebody that's telling me something really, really traumatic. Everybody in this room is an empathetic person that cares deeply for other people. And sometimes just hearing someone else talk about their traumatic event can be really upsetting. And so after having spoken with Scarlett, her teaching me some of these coping skills in the moment, I did an interview after she had taught me these skills. And again, the whole time I'm interviewing somebody for a really horrible crime, I was just tapping my toes the whole time. They couldn't see it. My shoes aren't even moving. And what was cool is when I walked out of the room, I felt totally calm. And in the past, if I had, done an interview like that, not always, but there'd be a better chance that I'd be walking out there feeling pretty unhappy about the situation. It really does help you kind of stay in the moment and allow you to process things where you feel like you're more active and that you're not just kind of passively having everything just kind of overwhelm you. I do this in meetings sometimes. It's helpful.
And then, so taking a sip of water is a great one to do. So when we start to get a dry mouth, our brain's switching over to our parasympathetic system for fight or flight. But if we can take a sip of water and just sort of run the water around your mouth, that helps you stay in your relaxation system. So that helps you stay calmer. That's an easy one. You could have a calm word to use, like, do you guys have like, this is gonna sound weird, but maybe we'll use these things. Do you have like a shield or like a bubble boundary or something like that that you all teach to use? No. So you can, so it's kind of, where did I learn this one? I learned this one at a conference. So these are just sort of techniques that I've learned over time from going conferences and stuff. So you can kind of have like a shield, like it's all imaginary, but you can have like a shield or a bubble boundary, something, right? You can kind of see through it, but just, like whatever's coming at you can't get you. And there's going to be like a protective boundary there. And that if somebody's trying to like throw like a word dagger at you, not right, like they're getting, what would you say?
They're insulting. Yeah.
They're using inappropriate words. Okay. They're being inappropriate. Okay. You can sort of have like, put your shield up and have a calm word that you would tell yourself, like beach or I don't know, ocean, something that would help calm you down so that it makes it a little bit easier to respond to the person or group of people. Chewing gum's another good one too, because you're getting the saliva in your mouth going, and that's going to help keep you in your relaxation system or your synthetic system.
Thanks to Scarlett now, again, hasn't happened all that often, but when I go lights and siren, that's an easy one that probably for a lot of us can trigger quite the adrenaline dump, depending on what we remember from past events. I might not be able to sip water. I can't really necessarily tap my toes or tap my fingers because I'm driving really fast with the steering wheel and everything. But you can swish your tongue in the bottom of your mouth. Just literally even just doing that back and forth. Since I met Scarlett, I'll do that when I'm going lights and sirens somewhere. And it just helps me. I just don't get worked up about it anymore. I don't know. It's helpful.
Thanks for that tip, Mike. I'm going to steal that one and share that one with other people. So this is a grounding technique, and I'm going to share it with you all, and you can do it if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. But this is the grounding technique, and it becomes part of the ritual of doing EMDR. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the strategies from EMDR because they're so helpful. And I did my master's in like 2001 or 2002. And I didn't learn these things until I did the EMDR training in 2015. And I was like, why didn't somebody teach me this like 15 years ago? These are great, simple strategies that are really, really helpful. So you can run through it if you want with me. You don't have to if you don't want to, but just earth. So just notice the texture of your chair or your pants. You just do that with both hands. And then wind, inhale, exhale until you feel your shoulders drop. Water, notice the saliva in your mouth and swish it around. And fire, you're safe, surrounded by a ring of fire. Everything unsafe is outside the ring of fire. And that's just a common strategy. If fire is triggering for you, you can do island. So just do water, notice the saliva in your mouth and swish it around. And island, you're safe on an island. There's lots of water and anything that's unsafe is way, way far away. So they're just common techniques to use to just help you kind of get that brain to calm down, to go from like a 7, 8 to closer to a 1 to calm. And then containers. So you guys are better at containment than anybody. Like whenever we do counseling conferences, people always talk about first responders, and first responders are really good at containing things. So anyway, so teaching it to everybody else, but you all might want to develop a container for yourself too. They're great techniques, or it's a great technique, and it is, another thing that's a lot of fun to do. So a container is a conscious way of storing traumatic material, and it's utilizing the corpus callosum part of your brain. So that's sort of a middle part of your brain. It can be any size, shape, color. It needs to open, close, and lock. And you can store it in land, outer space, the ocean, a different time dimension. You can just do whatever you want with it. But it's just a conscious way of storing traumatic material. You can always also have a work container. So having a work container is really nice. I actually used my file cabinet as my container. I love it. So, a file cabinet, a safe, something that like locks and makes a sound, and you can really like have a really nice, vivid visual image of like, I'm taking whatever happened today at work, I'm going to put it in this container, I'm going to shut it, I'm going to lock it, and bloop, it goes to outer space, it goes in the ocean, I bury it, wherever you want to put it, you put it somewhere. And I don't know, container, it's fun. Did we do a container, Micah?
What's that?
Did we do a container?
We've never done an actual physical like exercise with a container, but whenever we would bring out a memory, we were going to process it. If at the end of the session it was not a 1 or a 0, sometimes I would just say 0, then she would always have me visualize. For me, I'm always visualizing a certain bank vault that I've known about my whole life. And I literally, in my mind, I take the memory, I put it in that vacuum tube, I seal it, and I literally, in my mind, just visualize it going into that bank vault and it just locking shut. And I just tell myself, until the next session with Scarlett, it's just going to stay in there. It's just a visualization thing. It's just another coping technique. But I don't know if it helps or not, but certainly it hasn't hurt anything.
Safe place is sort of like the calm I mentioned earlier. So you're just invoking, in 5 senses, a safe place. A lot of people use the beach, a cabin in the mountains, somewhere in nature. That's what most people use for a safe place. And then you're just invoking, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you touch? And what do you taste? I use the beach for my safe place. I mean, obviously, because I pulled that picture up there. But, it's calm, it's relaxing, it's safe. There's a lot of room there. And I think this would be really helpful for everybody. So when you're having a debrief, if you could add in, so like if something happens and then you have to sit down in a conference room and talk about it, tap your toes, doodle, wiggle your legs, do something so that that memory starts to reconsolidate. Because there is no need, when you work in a very stressful job that's very important, there is no need to let that sucker sit in there and cause problems, right? Better to start reconsolidating that memory as soon as you can. You know, when you go for a walk, you're reconsolidating a memory. You know, it's a natural, normal process that humans have used throughout all time. Just right now, it's called EMDR, but we all do it. And you're just letting go of those details. So there's many ways to do that, but you can do it for yourself after, you know, I don't know, something happens at work, and then you can replay it in your head and run in place or tap your toes, and that'll help reconsolidate the memories. And what that's going to do is decrease the less likelihood that it's going to store traumatically, which is going to decrease the likelihood that you're going to have PTSD or depression or anxiety or all those kind of negative things that happen when you're working in a stressful profession. Oh, I forgot to change this to prevent first responder burnout. It's the same thing, no matter what the profession is. So sorry, I forgot to change that word. So, you know, so these are strategies that can help, right? Everybody that's in a profession that there's high burnout, counselors, nurses, first responders, everybody in helping profession, the burnout rate's pretty high. Okay, so you can use earth, wind, water, fire, or some grounding technique to settle yourself. You have to be grounded to ground others. And you guys definitely do that when you show up whenever I've called the police and they come to my office, everybody's been very nice and really helped settle the person that needs to be settled down. When you're hearing really heavy stuff, tap your toes. Mike has been using that strategy. I'm so excited you're using that strategy. And
It worked.
yeah, and it works. Make yourself a work container and use it. You know, just one more way to leave work at work, kind of have that separation, you know, or whatever your ritual is for the work day's done and you're headed home. So you've got, you know, you've got a mental break from work stays here and I go home, or there's some separation. So those are helpful strategies. Okay, so if you can't tell already that I love EMDR, we really need to reconceptualize how we do mental health in the United States. And what we need is for EMDR to be first, that we use EMDR first before we use anything else, because it alleviates those symptoms so quickly. Okay, some people go to counseling for 15 years and they're not better. That's a big problem. That is not good enough. We want to get in there, clear those memories out. So you don't need to go to counseling. Like, I want you to, right, get these memories clear as quickly as you can and go have a good time. So what we really need to aim for, and you guys are welcome to advocate for, is to have EMDR certified clinicians in the workplace, so that if something happens, there's somebody at work here at Virginia Tech somewhere that you can go into and say, hey, I need to reprocess that. And they're like, sure, come on in, let's do it. Okay, that would be better. That would help reduce depression, anxiety, burnout. Oh, I forgot. What's it called when people quit their jobs?
People what?
When everybody quits their jobs, right? Like, not retention. It would increase retention. That's what I'm looking for, right? We need to do things differently. We need EMDR clinicians in the workplace, in schools, in hospitals, everywhere, so that we're able to reconsolidate those memories. Because what we really want to do is decrease the adverse events impact on us as human beings. So that's where we need to head. And you can probably put a clinician in your budget. I'm sure you can. So I'm right down the road on South Main Street. Aaron Sullivan's in Christiansburg, Krista Finks in Blacksburg, and Sienna Reed is almost certified in Roanoke. Does anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Yeah.
So if I was a Virginia Tech employee and I heard about this because someone in this room was awesome enough to tell me about it when I was maybe confiding in them that I was having a really hard time with something. Is this going to be a financial burden for a Virginia Tech employee?
No, because you just use your insurance. So everybody takes different insurances. Right now, I'm taking Anthem and Optima. If you call me and you tell me you're from the police department and you want to use Aetna, then I'll take you. But right, different insurance, right, private practice. Get into all the business stuff about it. But right, like different providers accept different insurances, but everybody through Virginia Tech has insurance. And so everybody takes, of those 4 people, everybody takes the insurance. And so, right, it's like your it's like when you go to your primary care physician, it's going to be like $25 for your copay. And it's not very many sessions, depending on what you want to clear out. So the way that, so if you do EMDR the traditional way, it takes between 1 and 4 sessions to clear a trauma target. The way that I do it, adding in all those extra things, you can clear multiple targets in 1 session. So within an hour, you could clear several targets. Or you might clear a little bit. It really, everybody's brain reprocesses information at different rates. So you know, there's a variation in there, but it's powerful. It is, you know, it's effective. The VA recommends it. It's recommended by the World Health Organization as an effective way to decrease and alleviate traumatic memories. Any more questions?
Zip. All right. Thank you, Scarlett. I
Thanks.
appreciate it.